Good evening, my friend. As this day draws to its gentle close, I want you to know that you're not alone in whatever brought you here tonight. Whether you're lying in bed with a mind that won't quiet sitting in your favorite chair, feeling the weight of unfinished business, or perhaps walking through your home in those restless hours when sleep seems far away, I'm here with you. Tonight we're going to journey together through the most beloved psalm, written Psalm 23, and discover why millions of people across centuries have found their deepest comfort in these ancient words. Before we begin this sacred journey together, I'd love to know where you're joining me from tonight. Are you watching from your bedroom, your living room, or perhaps somewhere across the world where it's already tomorrow? Take a moment to let me know in the comments below where you are. And if this prayer brings even a whisper of peace to your heart, would you consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to join our community of prayer? Your presence here matters more than you know. Now let's step together into the embrace of the Great Shepherd. I know you've carried so much today. Maybe it was that morning meeting that stretched longer than expected, leaving you behind on everything else you planned to accomplish. Perhaps you found yourself stuck in traffic, watching the minutes tick by, while your mind raced through an endless list of tasks waiting at home. Or maybe it was those text messages, you still haven't answered those phone calls you've been avoiding, or that pile of bills sitting on your kitchen counter that seems to grow larger every time you walk past it. I remember a particular evening several years ago when my own day had been one of those relentless marathons. I had rushed from appointment to appointment, meeting to meeting, barely pausing to eat lunch, let alone catch my breath. By the time I finally walked through my front door, I felt like I was carrying the weight of the entire world on my shoulders. My phone was buzzing with more requests. My email inbox showed dozens of unread messages, and I realized I had promised my daughter I would help her with her science project that night. I felt completely overwhelmed, like a ship without an anchor being tossed around in rough seas. That's when I understood what it truly means to feel like a sheep without a shepherd. You know that feeling, don't you? It's like being lost in an unfamiliar neighborhood when your phone battery dies. It's that moment when you realize you've been so busy taking care of everyone else's needs that you've forgotten how to take care of your own. It's the overwhelming sense that you're supposed to have all the answers, make all the right decisions, and somehow keep everything together, but you honestly don't know which direction to turn next. I think back to when I was 8 years old and got separated from my family during a crowded county fair. One minute I was holding my mother's hand, marveling at the bright lights and carnival sounds, and the next minute I was completely alone in a sea of strangers. The noise that had seemed exciting just moments before suddenly felt deafening and terrifying. Every face I looked up at belonged to someone else, someone who couldn't help me find my way back to safety. That childhood memory captures perfectly what it feels like to go through adult life without sensing the presence of a loving guide. But here's what I've learned in my 38 years of walking this earth. The very fact that you're here tonight, seeking these words of comfort, shows that deep in your heart, you already know the truth that King David discovered 3,000 years ago. The Lord is my shepherd. Notice David didn't say, "The Lord was my shepherd," or "The Lord will be my shepherd someday." He declared with complete confidence, "The Lord is my shepherd." Right now, tonight, in this very moment when you feel most lost and exhausted. The word shepherd in the ancient Hebrew language carries such beautiful depth. It doesn't just mean someone who feeds sheep. A shepherd was a protector, a guide, a healer, and a friend. Shepherds in David's time didn't just watch their flocks from a distance. They knew each sheep individually. They could recognize each one's distinct voice and personality. When a sheep was hurt, the shepherd would carry it close to his heart until it healed. When danger approached, the shepherd would position himself between the threat and his beloved sheep. And because he is our shepherd tonight, what does this mean for our restless hearts? Let me acknowledge the weight you're carrying about tomorrow and next week and next month. I know, because I've been there too. Maybe you're lying awake wondering how you're going to cover that unexpected car repair bill that came at the worst possible time. Perhaps you're worried about your teenager who's been making choices that keep you up at night, praying and wondering if you've failed as a parent. Maybe it's that persistent cough that's been bothering you for weeks, and you keep putting off making that doctor's appointment because you're afraid of what they might find. I remember a season in my life when financial pressure felt like a heavy blanket I couldn't throw off. My wife and I had stretched ourselves too thin buying our first house, and then I lost a major client unexpectedly. Night after night, I would lie in bed doing mental math, calculating and recalculating our monthly expenses, trying to figure out how we were going to make everything work. I felt like I was drowning in an ocean of responsibilities with no life preserver in sight. That's when the second part of Psalm 23 became my lifeline. I shall not want. At first, I'll be honest, those words almost made me angry. What do you mean I shall not want? I wanted so many things. I wanted financial security. I wanted my clients back. I wanted to stop feeling like a failure as a provider for my family. But then I began to understand that David wasn't talking about getting everything we think we need. He was talking about something much deeper and more reliable. I shall not want means I shall not lack what is truly necessary. It means that the same God who counted every star in the sky and calls each one by name has also counted every day of your life and already made provision for each one. It doesn't mean you'll get everything you want exactly when you want it, but it does mean that you will never be abandoned in your moment of genuine need. I started keeping a journal during that difficult season, writing down every unexpected provision that came our way. There was the week when our neighbors brought over dinner 3 nights in a row, saving us grocery money we desperately needed for other bills. There was the friend who called out of the blue and offered me a freelance project that perfectly filled the gap left by my lost client. There was the day I found a $50 bill in the pocket of a jacket I hadn't worn in months, right when we needed gas money to get through the week. God's provision doesn't always look like what we expect or arrive when we think it should. Sometimes it comes through the generosity of others. Sometimes it comes through opportunities we never saw coming. Sometimes it comes through learning to be content with less than we thought we needed. But looking back over my life, I can honestly say that I have never lacked what was truly necessary for each day. Neither have you, my friend. You're still here. You're still breathing. You've made it through 100% of your difficult days so far. As I prepare for sleep tonight, I choose to trust that tomorrow's provision is already prepared by the same hands that held me through today. The same shepherd who noticed that you were hungry for peace tonight and led you to this prayer already knows what challenges tomorrow will bring. And he's already making a way through them, even though you can't see it yet. This shepherd who provides also knows where to lead us to true rest. There's a difference between being tired and being truly at rest, isn't there? You can lie in the most comfortable bed in the quietest room with perfect temperature control and still feel like your soul is running a marathon. I've had nights when my body was exhausted, but my mind wouldn't stop spinning through endless loops of worry, regret, and planning. I would toss and turn for hours, checking the clock every 30 minutes, calculating how many hours of sleep I could still get if I fell asleep right then. Real. Rest, the kind David is talking about when he says, "He makes me lie down in green pastures," is about more than physical comfort. It's about finally feeling safe enough to stop striving, stop controlling, Stop trying to manage every detail of your life through sheer willpower. Green pastures in the ancient Middle East were rare and precious. They represented abundance, safety, and peace. Shepherds would search for days to find that perfect spot where the grass was lush, the water was clean, and the area was protected from predators. I'll never forget this morning I discovered what green pastures really feel like. It was about 5 years ago, and I had been going through one of the most stressful periods of my career. I was working 60-hour weeks, barely seeing my family, and feeling like I was constantly behind on everything. I decided to take a long weekend and drive up to a cabin in the mountains, hoping to clear my head. Early one morning, before anyone else was awake, I walked down to a small meadow near a creek. The grass was still heavy with dew, and the morning sun was filtering through the pine trees in golden streams. I sat down on a fallen log and just listened. Really listened. For the first time in months, I wasn't thinking about my to-do list, or checking my phone, or planning my next move. I could hear the gentle sound of water moving over rocks, birds calling to each other in the distance, and a soft breeze rustling through the leaves. For about 20 minutes, I experienced what I can only describe as complete peace. He leads me beside still waters. Not rushing waters, crashing waters, or dramatic waterfalls. Still waters. There's something profoundly healing about stillness, isn't there? Rushing water is exciting and powerful, but you can't see your reflection in it. You can't drink easily from it. Still, water reflects the sky above and allows you to see clearly all the way to the bottom. It invites you to pause, to drink deeply, to rest. Sometimes God has to make us lie down because we've forgotten how to choose rest for ourselves. During that overwhelming season, I mentioned I actually got sick with a flu that kept me in bed for 4 days. I was initially frustrated because I had so much work to catch up on. But by the 3rd day, something shifted. I realized I hadn't felt this peaceful in months. My phone was in the other room. My laptop was closed. I had no choice but to rest. And in that forced stillness, I remembered what I had been missing. Maybe that's where you are tonight. Maybe you've been running so hard for so long that you've forgotten what it feels like to truly rest. Maybe you feel guilty when you're not productive, anxious when you're not in control, or restless when everything is actually going well. Tonight, I want you to know that rest is not laziness. Peace is not a luxury. Stillness is not wasted time. They are gifts from a shepherd who loves you enough to lead you to exactly what your soul needs most. But even in these green pastures, our souls sometimes need deeper restoration. There's a difference between being tired and having a depleted soul, isn't there? Physical exhaustion can be fixed with a good night's sleep and a strong cup of coffee in the morning. But soul depletion is something altogether different. It's when you wake up after 8 hours of sleep and still feel empty inside. It's when you accomplish everything on your list, but feel no sense of satisfaction. It's when you're surrounded by people who love you, but still feel fundamentally alone. I went through a season like that about 6 years ago. From the outside, everything in my life looked successful. I had a good job, a healthy family, a comfortable home. But on the inside, I felt like I was slowly disappearing. I had lost my sense of wonder, my capacity for joy, my connection to the things that used to bring me life. I was going through all the motions of living, but I wasn't really alive. I felt like a car running on empty, somehow still moving, but knowing that at any moment, I might just coast to a complete stop. That's when I learned what David meant when he wrote, "He restores my soul." The Hebrew word for restore doesn't just mean to fix something that's broken. It means to bring something back to a condition that's even better than its original state. Think about how a master craftsman restores a vintage instrument. They don't just repair the damage. They bring out the full potential of what that instrument was always meant to be. I remember watching a documentary about an artist who specializes in restoring old paintings. She showed how she would carefully remove layers of dirt and grime that had accumulated over decades, revealing colors that were more vibrant than anyone had seen in generations. But the most delicate part of her work was filling in the places where the original paint had completely worn away. She would study the artist's technique mix colors that perfectly matched the original palette and painstakingly recreate what had been lost. The finished painting wasn't just clean, it was more beautiful than it had been in 100 years. That's what God does with depleted souls. He doesn't just give us a quick spiritual energy drink and send us back out into the world. He takes time with us. He gently removes the accumulation of disappointment, betrayal, and exhaustion that has built up over months or years. He fills in the places where hope used to live, but has worn away. He brings back colors in our hearts that we thought were gone forever. For me, this restoration didn't happen all at once. It started with small moments when I would suddenly notice something beautiful that I had been walking past for months without seeing. A sunset that made me stop in my tracks. A song on the radio that brought tears to my eyes for reasons I couldn't explain. My daughter's laugh from the other room that reminded me why life is precious. These weren't dramatic spiritual experiences. They were quiet reminders that my capacity for wonder was still there, just buried under layers of routine and responsibility. Gradually, I started to feel something I had almost forgotten. Gratitude that wasn't forced. Hope that wasn't based on my circumstances. Joy that bubbled up from somewhere deep inside, instead of depending on everything going right in my external world. My soul was being restored, not just repaired. Tonight, as you rest, this restoration begins again. You might not feel it immediately. You might not wake up tomorrow completely transformed. But something is happening in the stillness of this moment. The same God who restored David's soul after he had made terrible mistakes, who restored Peter's soul after he had denied knowing Jesus, who restored Paul's soul after years of being completely wrong about everything that mattered, is gently working on your soul right now. And as our souls find their strength again, he guides us forward. Tomorrow is going to bring decisions. Isn't it maybe some of them are small, like what to have for lunch or which route to take to work? But some of them feel enormous. Maybe you're facing a choice about your career that could change the entire direction of your life. Perhaps you're trying to decide how to handle a relationship that has become complicated and painful. Maybe you're standing at a crossroads with your health, your finances, or your family, and you honestly don't know which path will lead to blessing and which will lead to more heartache. I remember standing in a similar place about 4 years ago. I had been offered a promotion that would have meant significantly more money and prestige, but it also would have required me to travel 3 weeks out of every month. My daughter was in 7th grade at the time, going through some typical but challenging middle school struggles. My wife was dealing with her mother's declining health and really needed my support at home. The practical side of my brain kept calculating all the benefits of taking this opportunity. The emotional side of my heart kept whispering that my family needed me present more than they needed me to be more successful. I spent weeks going back and forth making lists of pros and cons, asking friends for advice, losing sleep over the decision. That's when I realized I was trying to figure out the right path using only my limited human perspective. I was thinking about what would make me look good, what would secure my future, what would impress other people. But I wasn't asking what would align with the character of the God I claimed to trust. He leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. The word righteousness here doesn't mean perfection or sinless behavior. It means alignment. It means choices that reflect God's character and values. When I started asking different questions, the decision became clearer. Which choice would demonstrate love over ambition? Which path would prioritize relationships over achievement? Which option would require me to trust God's provision rather than my own ability to secure my future? I turned down the promotion. Some of my colleagues thought I was crazy. But you know what happened 3 months later? A different opportunity opened up that allowed me to advance in my career while actually spending more time at home. I was able to be present for my daughter during one of the most important years of her adolescence. And I learned that when we choose paths of righteousness, we're not just making good moral decisions. We're aligning ourselves with God's reputation and character, which means He has a vested interest in making sure those paths lead to blessing. For His name's sake is one of my favorite phrases in all of Scripture. It means that God's own reputation is tied up with how He treats us. When people see how He cares for His children, it reflects on His character. When we thrive under His guidance, it brings glory to His name. That means He's not going to lead us somewhere just to abandon us. He's not going to guide us into situations where we'll fail spectacularly and make Him look bad. Sometimes His guidance comes through open doors and clear opportunities. Sometimes it comes through closed doors that redirect us toward better paths. Sometimes it comes through wise counsel from people we trust. And sometimes, like tonight, it comes through the quiet voice we can hear when we finally stop talking long enough to listen. In the silence of this moment, what is your heart telling you about the decisions you're facing? Not your anxious thoughts or your fearful what-ifs, but that deeper knowing that comes from a place of peace rather than panic. Tomorrow, you don't need to see the whole staircase, just the next step. The same shepherd who has guided you this far will continue to lead you forward one choice at a time. As we prepare to close this day, let us place everything into His capable hands. Tonight, I choose to release everything I cannot control. I release the outcome of that difficult conversation I need to have tomorrow. I release my worry about whether my children will make good choices. I release my anxiety about test results, job interviews, and financial pressures. I release my frustration with people who have hurt me and my fear of people who might hurt me in the future. I place all of these burdens into hands that are infinitely more capable than mine. One of the most beautiful truths in all of Psalm 23 comes at the very end. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life. David doesn't say we have to chase after goodness and mercy, constantly striving to earn God's favor through our performance. He says goodness and mercy will follow us. The picture is of these two faithful companions walking behind us wherever we go, making sure we never outrun God's love. I think about all the times in my life when I was so focused on what was ahead of me that I completely missed the goodness and mercy that had been following me all along. Like the time I was stressed about finding a new job and didn't notice until weeks later how many friends had reached out with encouragement and practical help. Or the season when I was worried about my father's health and failed to appreciate how much closer our relationship became through that difficult time. Goodness and mercy have been following you too. They were there in the friend who called at exactly the moment you needed to talk to someone. They were there in the song that came on the radio and somehow spoke directly to your situation. They were there in the way the bills got paid, even when the math didn't seem to work. They were there in the strength you found when you thought you couldn't handle one more thing. And they'll be there tomorrow, and next week, and next month. Not because you've earned them, or because you've prayed the right prayers, or because you've been good enough, but because that's who God is. That's His character. Goodness and mercy aren't just things He gives. They're expressions of who He is. And I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Home isn't just a place we're going someday. Home is where God is, and God is here, right now in this moment. Home is this sense of belonging, of being known and loved exactly as you are. Home is the peace that settles over your heart when you stop trying to earn love and start receiving it. Father, I pray for my friend who is listening to these words tonight. I pray that as they close their eyes, their mind would be filled with your peace instead of tomorrow's worries. I pray that their dreams would be gentle and restorative. I pray that they would wake up tomorrow with a renewed sense of hope and purpose. Watch over their loved ones tonight. Heal what needs to be healed. Provide what needs to be provided. Guide what needs to be denied. And remind them even in their sleep that they are never alone because they belong to the Good Shepherd. If this prayer has brought comfort to your heart tonight, I'd love to hear from you in the comments below. What part of Psalm 23 speaks most deeply to your current situation? Are you in need of rest, restoration, guidance, or simply the reminder that goodness and mercy are following you? Share your prayer requests with our community. We believe in the power of people praying for each other. And if you'd like to be part of more conversations like this, please consider subscribing to this channel and hitting the notification bell so you'll know when new prayers are posted. Share this video with someone who might need these words of comfort tonight. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is let someone know they're not alone in their struggles. Thank you for allowing me to pray with you tonight. Thank you for trusting me with this sacred time before sleep. Until we meet again in prayer, rest well, in the Shepherd's care. May His peace guard your heart and mind. May His love surround you like a warm blanket. And may you wake up tomorrow knowing that you are cherished beyond measure. Good night, my friend.